I met Sunila very briefly in 2009 when she came to Canada and came to Canadian Tamil Congress office. And what I remember her was her humility and humbleness and the humanity that she brought with her.
So we shared, actually her house was a safe haven, not only for me, but for countless others who were leaving Jaffna and Barrichello. It was a kind of, in Tamil we used to say, Adaya Nadun Kadavu. That means the doors will never cease to close, never cease to open. So unfortunately or fortunately, she also had to leave Sri Lanka because of the threat from the JVP, Jinadasa, the so-called Marxist party. There's never been a Marxist, there's a different story. So we both ended up in The Hague in the Netherlands for almost 2 years. That was the beginning of a long friendship and working in the spirit of solidarity. Perhaps Sunila is the most important person for all the Tamils that she expressed the highest degree of solidarity with us. There are different degrees of solidarity, right? You could simply say that, we are with the Tamils, we are with the Tamil struggle, but we do not want them to have their own autonomy, right? We would like them to be part of Sri Lanka, right? Or we would like them to share the Sri Lankan identity. But there's a different degree of solidarity that would say, well, we want the Tamils to decide what you want. And we, as Sinhalese, progressive, or Sinhalese, we don't have any right to tell you what exactly you want. That is the highest degree of solidarity expressed by Sunila and countless others. We really, really cherish that thing. In that sense, it's a huge loss for all of us that we did not really have Sunila with us.
And find out what was going on. And increasingly, with the number of times I went there, I became more active with Amnesty International. And it was so clear that Sunila's work, solid work at Inform, for example, the organization that she and her father Charlie, got going to gather information in lieu of information being available otherwise in that country, where information was increasingly controlled by the government. A little less so than Rajapaksa, may I say, editorially, but still, Jayawardena, Khemdasa were both interested in curtailing information. And Sunila was one of the bright lights, a woman standing, it's just wonderful, a woman standing up for human rights when women weren't recognized as leaders, in the human rights community. And so it was particularly wonderful to have an articulate, strong-willed, hard-working.
To introduce Sharma Ranamana. Sharma is a media activist and a journalist, and she's also an active member with a rights group called Networking for Rights in Sri Lanka.
Her active involvement in the implementation of the UN Resolution 1325 made it possible for women to participate in peace negotiations. And as an extension of that, during the peace talks in Sri Lanka in 2001, a subcommittee on gender issues with 5 appointees each from the government of Sri Lanka and the LTT was set up. Soon after Sunila's death, a colleague of mine at Women and Media Collective posted an image of a huge tree on Facebook, likening it to Sunila.
I would like to ask my good friend and the man with the big voice, David, the spokesperson for Canadian Tamil Congress.
That singing ability gave her a really good voice. That voice gave a sort of an authority over her statements. Through Canadian Tamil Congress, I have come to know many journalists here and abroad. And all of them who went to Sri Lanka, who met with Sunila, came with really good impression about her. Anytime when we talk about Sri Lanka, when I bump into them and when Sri Lanka comes up and when I ask them whom did you meet with and things like that, Sunila names always comes up. And you know what? Everyone was very highly taken up her commitment, the way of speaking, and how she brings up the issues and introduce Sri Lankan politics to them, and also these are complex issues, but she had the ability and the command to explain these things in a very simple format to people whom didn't even know much about that.
It's part of the Anglican Church of Canada, and when I was there, I was standing on shoulders of a couple people who had preceded me, Robin Gibson and John Vandenberg, who had been very engaged in the Sri Lanka work and advocacy here in Canada, and they both, within a space of 6 months of each other, died. And so there was a void, and sort of I came into that situation. So, but in terms of getting my feet wet on the ground in Sri Lanka, Suni just took me under her wings. And as has been alluded to, she's a very engaging personality. So it's just very easy to be under her wings and sort of, but I mean, there was discussion of relationships and dynamics and higher criticism of different organizations and different schools of thought, but it was all done in a very accessible kind of way. So
our next speaker is Ajit Jinadasa. Ajit Jinadasa is I think probably one of the most popular single actress that the contemporary single cinema has produced.
She is a single woman by birth. However, her life is affectionately celebrated today by a majority Tamil organization. It seems the so-called single society is least bothered about her death. Nothing to be surprised, though. While her death was minor news or not news for Sri Lanka's mainstream single media, her funeral was given live telecast online for almost 2 hours, facilitated by Samabima of Rights Now organization. In Sri Lanka, Sunila mostly faced insult and accusations.
Next, I would like to call upon Anupa. Anupa Khemdasa is not only one of the closest friends of Sunila, but she's an illustrious daughter of an illustrious musician. Long time ago, when I first met Sunila, she's the one who introduced me to Sinhalese music, Sinhalese theater, and Sinhalese poetry.
I think it's really amazing work with my single instrument. But I thought it's the most appropriate for many reasons. For one thing, I think it's Sunilaka's first recorded music, and she sang in the chorus, but it was pretty key to that piece. And it's in that I first met Sunilaka at the shooting of this film, Borough. And also, last but not least, I feel like that the darkness and the lightness of this piece of music.
Over time, probably for the last 4 years, she's been an incredible mentor to our Geneva team, not just to the Canadian team, but also to the international Tamil team that works out of Geneva. She has been a great deal of support and strength, and she has been a source of guidance as well in opening the doors to many different relationships in Geneva, including the NGO community, governments as well as other partners on the ground. Her loss is certainly a loss that's shared by all of us, I think, in Canada as well as internationally. I think her work speaks for itself. There's incredible tributes. We did a memorial in Geneva last 2 weeks ago, and we had many people come and speak, many of her close friends, members from the High Commissioner's office, as well as several government delegations. So she's highly respected in many, many, many spheres within both the NGO sector as well as the human rights sector as a whole.
But the one voice that I found that was missing tonight is the voice of people like me. People who knew of the fantastic work that Sunila did and knew her and knew of her through what we learned from everywhere else, but didn't have the luxury and the privilege of knowing her personally. So all of you are the privileged ones in the room who spoke, who got to experience her spirit directly, who knew her, who were mentored by her, and who felt her love directly. And what I felt was missing was the voice of the hundreds of thousands of us who weren't those privileged few. And I knew of Sunila through UN Women and the work that she did internationally, and through the sexual and reproductive rights movement, through the women's movement, through the feminist movement, and of course what she did for human rights overall in Sri Lanka. And
scattered like floating lotus, defying land and time, our wings gain strength. Your life, the essence of kindness. Divided by land and sea and space, our dreams, a constant bridge. Sun, where are you? Sun, where are you? I don't hear your voice. Send me a picture. The messages you sent. The telephone bursting with love. A short life.